Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate and supported ministries and or nonprofits. So now, the woman and the man with the plan to put gold in your hand. It's the hammocks.
Woo! Thank you, Matt. Well, we are excited to be here. This is our first broadcast from the new studios of Acts Media. And I got to tell you, it's so bright in here, I need shade. Our future's so bright, I need shades. It's really bright, but we're excited to be here. And, one of the things that we were talking about in regards to today's show were, what are some of the things that folks should be doing with this new year, right here in like 72 hours or 48 hours, I guess. Basically, we got today and tomorrow, and then, midnight, it turns to 2021. Yay! Are you excited for 2021 to get here?
Well, it's got to be better than 2020, so yes.
Yes, 2020 has been a crazy, eventful year for everybody.
That it has.
I still have moments where I forget that this isn't just, a Missouri or a Springfield thing. I was talking to somebody yesterday over in Kansas, and I just kind of forgot, and he said something about, having to deal with the masks and everything. And I was like, oh, yeah, they've got it to deal with over there, too. So, hopefully we'll be able to sort this all out and everything. But we were talking about what should people be doing, especially since this show's about alternative assets and money and insurance and, basically trying to make your portfolio, your financial life safer and so forth. And one of the things we came up with was the policy review. And what I mean by that is every insurance company out there, because of either COVID or because interest rates are incredibly low, they're kind of readjusting their offerings, and some are discontinuing some are improving some are changing them a little bit here or there. And because of that, everybody probably should look at this as an opportunity to go through and review whatever insurance policies you have, be it life insurance or long-term care or
Property and casualty. Yeah.
Auto or home or something like that. What are some of the things that folks should be looking for in your world?
Well, again, in property and casualty, as each year, and really they'll do it throughout the year, but most of the companies will be looking at what natural disasters have happened, which ones are they predicting will happen, and they are very aware of how it's important as a stable financial entity to prepare for or react to, right? So that's something that, again, it's worth reviewing your insurance policy at least yearly to make sure that it's covering the things that are important to you at a fair price to what would be reasonable, at least for the area. Were you going to do some housekeeping too and share with us the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I was going to. I just thought since this was new, I'd share it first because I might forget. And,
Fair. Okay.
But getting back to like the life insurance review, I've done those for decades, and what's always interesting is somebody's got an old life policy in the the office drawer, desk drawer, and they've kind of just let it sit there for 10, 12, 15 years, however long. They think they're covered because they've got, X amount of life insurance that they bought all those years ago. And the good news is they probably got a pretty good price because they were that much younger. A lot of the insurance pricing for life insurance is based on how old you are.
Which is why we encourage people to think about it early on when they're planning.
Well, and when they're insurable, because it's funny how
That's
life
true, too.
works. You get a little older and you got to deal with some stress, so you may put a few pounds on around the middle, or whatever it is, and the blood pressure goes up, and then there's some cholesterol, and before you know it, you're not preferred, you're standard, and all that kind of stuff. So it does get more expensive as you get older. But where I was going with that is that all of a sudden, they I encounter them and we talk about doing a policy review, and they bring it in, and we kind of look at, okay, they've got X amount of insurance for X amount of dollars, and they're either paying monthly or annually as far as that premium goes or something. Or in some cases, they may have got a permanent policy and they've got it paid off. But the example I was going to use is that what we do is we go through and we figure out, okay, what are your current needs for insurance, and then we take and compare what they've got to what's out there. And it's really funny because sometimes I have cases where for the same amount of premium that they've been paying for this older policy, they can get much more life insurance, which makes sense. And or in some cases, they just want to keep the life insurance at that same level, but because of all the different things that are going on, and the actuaries out there are always kind of tweaking what they do with mortality tables and so forth. In some cases, they just want the same amount of insurance, but they might be able to pay less for it. And in life insurance, especially back in the old days when you got a life policy, you had to die to get the benefit. Your beneficiaries were the one that got the proceeds of that. And, the neat thing about it is it would be tax-free. But I will tell you, in the last 8, 9, 10 years, a lot of the policies that we deal with have living benefits. And, the name kind of says it. In other words, you could still be alive and be able to tap into some of the cash. And in some cases, it may be a term policy where there's not even any cash value. But if you become chronically ill, or
those critical illness parts have been incredibly important.
Oh, yeah.
As you can imagine with COVID, a lot of these folks have really been able to utilize those benefits for the critical illness part because, again, it is not a respecter of age or gender or where you live or anything else. It's happening.
So the critical, and then the one I was getting ready to mention is the terminal. All of a sudden, God forbid, but you find out you've got, 6 months to live, and some of these policies are set up to where you can contact the company, and in most cases they'll do a quick medical exam, and there may be an expense for that. One that I deal a lot with, they say it could be up to $500, but they're all different, and they're not all going to be $500 for the medical exam, but basically they're just trying to determine your
eligibility, and they want to make sure that if you are in fact terminal, that they are extending to you that benefit.
Well, and since it's term and there's no cash value, what happens is let's say they determine, okay, you're right, you got 6 months, you might be able to tap into as much as 80% of that face value. Somewhere, from 0 to 80. There's a lot of moving parts, but you get access to those dollars now. And, it's to your discretion how you use them. You might use them to pay medical expenses. You might use them to, take the family to, some spot where you can create some memories before you go. And, there's just a plethora of ideas on how you could use the money and so forth. But the point is you have access to it. You don't have to pass away in order to get some of the benefits these days with these newer policies. So I guess to wrap this part of the show up, I would definitely encourage you, if you've got an old policy, whatever it is, auto insurance, home insurance, renter's insurance, life insurance, health insurance, just any of these different kinds of policies that they have out there now, long-term care insurance, I would contact your agent and see if you could have a quick review. If you don't have an agent, by all means give us a shout. Where can they find you?
They can find me through Liberty Mutual. My email address is lorna.hammock@libertymutual.com, and they can also reach me on my office phone, 417-414-6366, or my cell phone, 417-225-2011, and you're welcome to text as well if that's easier for you. Again, that particular number is 417-225-2011. And, just reach out. I'd be happy to look it over. I am brutally honest in the fact that sometimes people have great policies, and I'm the one to say, hey, you know what? This is okay. This is a good price, and you're getting a good opportunity to cover what's important to you. And let's talk again in 6 months or a year. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes there's an opportunity for you to be saving some money or maybe getting a different set of coverages that are more meaningful at this particular point in your life. So by all means, reach out, and I would be happy to help.
All righty. Well, so back to the housekeeping. You know, we try to include a stewardship course each show. Last week, I think we might have skipped that just because we wanted to go through the 12 steps of COVID-19 and a few other things because it was the eve of Christmas Eve. But this week, we're going to go back to the stewardship format, and I've got one queued up here. The devotional is called Financial Stewardship. And I'll read through this real quick just so we can kind of get it right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. What is financial stewardship? Simply put, it's the way you use your resources to provide for your needs and for the needs of God's kingdom. It's important to note that stewardship involves far more than your money because your resources involve far more than money and material goods. Among your resources are your talents, experiences, creative ideas, energy, time, spiritual gifts, and much more. Your resources encompass the total you. God desires to bless all of you and to be directly involved in every area of your life. And he wants all of you to be actively engaged in his plan for this world. And that's Matthew 5:14 through 16. Financial stewardship is something with which all people are involved, whether they know it or not. Every person is a steward of God's gifts, including money and material goods, and he has a perfect plan for what you're to do with your money and material wealth. He has a plan for blessing you with increase in money and material possessions, and for you to increase your ability to bless others. The key is discovering what that plan of God is for you. You must remember that God doesn't separate your business life from your spiritual life. From his perspective, the two are intricately connected. Why? Simply because you can't be prosperous if you're growing and bearing fruit in only one area of your life. Prosperity has to do with your entire life. In a very practical way, God's just as concerned about your finances and your ability to meet your material needs as he is with your spiritual growth and development. Many people have been taught incorrectly to think of money as being dirty. They view finance and business as unspiritual matters, and certainly not anything that could ever be considered holy. They regard money and financial principles as subjects that should be outside the domain of the church. Let me assure you, God doesn't see money as filthy. Money itself is neutral in his eyes. It's what we do with our money that counts before God. He desires for our financial lives to become sanctified, which means that we deal with our finances in purity, governed by right motives and in ways that are wholly acceptable to God. Not bad.
I actually really like that because one of the things we occasionally talk, I talk to friends and stuff about that, and they'll say things like, well, I never really went into the ministry, or, you know, gosh, I want to serve God more, but I don't feel like I'm doing a great job. You know, every day, and I used to tell myself this when I was a stay-at-home mom too, even if you're cleaning toilets, right? Even if you're scrubbing the house or fixing meals or doing some of the other unglamorous things that we get to do every day, if you're doing that to the glory of God, you are serving his greater purpose, because all of those things need to be done. And you and I both in our career lives have tried really hard to continue to be servants of his will in whatever capacity we can be. We try and help people, and we make sure that we're doing the right thing by people. And we know that the financial part takes care of itself. It always has.
Well, we've got that saying we like to use, chop wood, tote water,
Yeah, chop wood, carry water before enlightenment, and then after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
You have to continue to be on that path. You have to continue to serve. You're never going to arrive. The only time that we arrive is when we pass through the pearly gates. I mean, that's your arrival. But as long as we're here, we're chopping wood and carrying water.
Well, and I know just from my own experience, I can still remember back in the old days, the 1990s. I thought I was a pretty big shot, and so I could only go to the doctor for my physical in December because it was a little slower. The rest of the year I was all over the place traveling and stuff like that. So I had this annual physical there for about a decade where I'd go see my doctor and they'd do the lab work and stuff. And I'll never forget this. December of '97, I was in with my doctor at the time, and I had just completed my most successful year financially. And, I was sitting there on the table while he was, checking the pulse and all this kind of stuff. And I told him, I said, it is the weirdest thing. I made X and I'm miserable. And, of course, being the good doctor that he was, he wrote me a prescription for an antidepressant, but, which I no longer take. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is that, here was this year that I'd had so much success financially, but, there was something missing. There was something not clicking the way it should as far as my life at the time. And, of course, that was before I'd met the lovely Lorna here.
Well, okay, but what it comes down to is that money is not evil any more than it's good. It's not perfect. It's not your solution. It's never been your solution. It's never been anyone's solution. A lot of people say, gosh, I'm willing to take that risk. Let me know when you want to give me a whole bunch of money and I'll tell you whether or not I'm happy. But on the flip side, when it comes right down to it, you have to be stable before that. Money enhances what you're already on the path to do. So, it's amazing how many emotions just that word alone, much less the actual object, has. That it triggers.
Yeah. Well, and the other little thing that popped into my head here is to just kind of mention, be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it. I mean, I know what I was praying for back then, and we had some interesting things happen in the next couple of years, and some of it was business life, and some of it was spiritual and all that kind of stuff. So. It's just I've learned, it's funny, years ago I was doing something and I thought, well, maybe I need more patience. And so I, included wanting more patience in my prayer. And, like within a day I was stuck in traffic someplace here in town and I told somebody about it and they were like, well, see, you got what you prayed for. You got more patience. You had to have more patience to survive that traffic jam and stuff. So anyway, we do have more housekeeping. Let's get into some of the prices for some of these precious metals. And these first few, remember, are precious, and so the prices are by the ounce. As of 9:18 this morning, gold, the ask on gold was $1,886.50. Silver was $26.45. Platinum was $1,068. Palladium was $2,397 an ounce, and rhodium was $16,300 an ounce. And to make it, I guess, maybe even more clear on how things are doing, since we're sitting here on the 30th of the month with 2 days left in the year, let me just give you an idea. For gold, gold for the year to date is up 23.85%. And in the last month is up 5.77. So that's not bad, 23.85. If you'd been sitting there on January 1 of 2020 and I told you that, on December 30th, I could have you with a 23.85% return, would you have taken it? Now, granted, with the way this year's gone, there's been a few other vehicles out there that, have returned higher, like silver, for example. Silver is year-to-date up, we could almost call it 47%. It's up 46.92%. And for the last month, it's up 15.95%. So, there's some nice returns. I mean, the monthly return alone, most people will be satisfied with. But on an annual basis, well, I shouldn't say annual, year-to-date. So for the last 363 days, silver has returned 46.92%. And and it wasn't a straight line. It didn't go just like this. There was a lot of ups and downs back in March. These figures would have not been as nice. And so, one of the things I'm always preaching when I'm on these shows or talking with clients or anybody for that matter that'll listen is I am talking about dollar cost averaging. And, for example, let's just take this year alone. If you had a system set up where every month you were moving a certain amount that you could afford into, let's say, silver, for example. And let's say the amount, just for example, is $100. You would have, those first few months of the year, been buying it at a certain price. And then in March, that deposit would have probably bought more silver, as far as the ounces or grams, than the one that's going in this month. Because March, not only did the stock market go down drastically, but everything else did. And so there would have been there'd been like a sale, like at the shoe store. Oh, let's go get some shoes because everything's on sale. And then with the dollar cost averaging, as we got out of March and into the year, the prices started to increase. And, granted, you're buying less silver with your $100 a month, but you would have taken advantage of the lower price and overall would have a better experience, I would think. I mean, there's nobody I know, not even the talking heads on TV, that can ever pinpoint the exact top or the exact bottom of any market, be it the stock market or options or metals or real estate or whatever. So just kind of food for thought there. As far as the base metals, and these prices are by the pound. Copper, which is my baby this year. I was looking earlier, but anyway, at 9:20 this morning, copper per pound was $3.54. Nickel is $7.64. That's up 1.5 cents. Aluminum is 91 cents. Zinc is $1.24. Lead is 89 cents. Uranium, Ace's favorite, is $30 a pound. And the crude oil, barrel of crude oil right now is $48.27. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average started out fast this morning. It's up 118 points, and it's currently 30,453. So NASDAQ is 12,904, and it's up about 54 points. And that is the current pricing of all these different products. And we tend to kind of work more on the alternative assets here. I will mention to you that one of them that falls into that, excuse me, is the Bitcoin, or I should say cryptos, because anymore there's thousands of cryptos, but the ones that are the largest are Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin. They probably have the majority of the market cap out there. And Bitcoin today it looks like in the last 24 hours, is up $875. It is currently at $28,191.
Crazy.
$28,172. And I mean, literally, it's moving as we speak. Ethereum is, oh my goodness, Ethereum's up to $733.18. So, what's happening there, and we've talked about cryptos quite a bit on the show, especially in the fourth quarter. But I will tell you, if you haven't tuned in before, let me clue you in. If you have seen this before and heard this before, let me just kind of reinforce it. First off, I think cryptos are very, very, very risky. I would not put any money in a cryptocurrency that I couldn't afford to lose. And just because we don't know. I mean, this is all uncharted territory to some extent and stuff. But with that said, with Bitcoin specifically, that one crypto, the main one, the most they'll ever be able to issue is 21 million. And right now, I think in circulation, there's about 19 million. So, and it's going to take a while for the other 2 million to be harvested or mined, as they call it, just because of the way it's structured. They had a halving back in May, which what that means is as they are mining, they're only able to pull out half as much as they were before the mine or before the halving. and the next halving is in 2024. So what they've done, the gentleman who wrote the original code for Bitcoin, the blockchain they call it, they had that structured. So it's going to take a while for those other 2 million to get finally into the market and in circulation. And the point is, anytime you have a limited supply and an ever increasing demand, guess what happens? That price is going to go up. I mean, exponentially in some cases. And just here in the last 4 months, maybe 5 months, I mean, what's happened is a lot of companies, institutions, hedge funds, money managers have started to put money into Bitcoin instead of having their cash set there in a money market account that's earning nothing. They've got it working in Bitcoin, and I think the company MicroStrategy was the first one that kind of made that jump. And I looked the other day, and the gentleman who runs MicroStrategy, I mean, he's got just a huge amount of Bitcoin now. I mean, we're talking like 600, 700 million at least. And then right after that was Square. Jack Dempsey is the CEO of Square. He put 50 million in back, I want to say in September or October.
And Berkshire Hathaway jumped in at some point, Warren Buffett.
Well, and here's one that blew me away. I mean, this was like, I had to like wipe my eyes and make sure I wasn't seeing double or something like that. And mainly because I used to work for them like 3 lifetimes ago. Mass Mutual.
Wow.
Out of Springfield, Massachusetts. Mass Mutual is one of the most conservative
They're very conservative
insurance companies, and they put over, I want to say over $100 million of their general account into Bitcoin. Now, let me make this really clear. Their general account is billions and billions of dollars in size. So 100 million, I know that's a lot of money, but on a percentage basis.
No, it's
yeah. So anyway, I'm not saying run out and buy Bitcoin, but I am trying to give you information that says, you know what, we got a situation going on right now where it is on the upswing. It very well could, have a correction and be down, 20% or more. But there again, that dollar cost averaging would come into play. And so that's what's going on with the cryptos. What's going on in life insurance and so forth?
Well, again, as we get to the end of 2020, most insurance companies are, of course, re-evaluating their positions, their financial positions, kind of like Mass Mutual, placing money in places. All companies are kind of doing that sort of thing. As far as life insurance is concerned, aside from the regular changes that are happening within the market, I'm not entirely sure what specific changes you're asking about.
Well, I know that, with this COVID-19 situation, I have my office downstairs, and Lorna has her office right above mine. And then, of course, the boys, when school's in, are up on the top floor, and they're on their computers doing classes, and at least while Ace is home from college, and then when he goes, it's Mr. Luke. And so, sometimes I overhear things, and I know that there's been a couple of challenging cases and stuff. I guess the thing is that I know that you have a wide range of products. You go from renter's insurance all the way out to advanced type stuff.
Sure. And I mean, that's the thing, is that now I have the ability to everything from pet insurance, single jewelry policies, which, by the way, if you have that written into your home policy, you may want to take a look at splitting that out and having a separate jewelry policy instead of combining it. That's another one of those things that people, as they're reviewing their policies, might want to consider, is doing that, because sometimes that can create a savings. And then all the way up to, annuities. So we have the ability to do a lot of things, but the things we don't do, you do. So,
well, and that's just it. I mean, I will tell you that in the last 6 months, I've always been licensed to sell these next 2 things I'm going to mention, but there's been a lot of situations that have come up where that was the necessary product for the solution. And what I'm referring to is that there's a lot of Medicare supplements out there. We now handle those. And then here recently, I had a dear client of mine that called me up one day. She'd seen this solicitation from a insurance company on a final expense policy for her husband. And her husband is, he's a little bit too short for his weight, and
He's not overweight, he's under tall.
he's under tall, and one or two other things and stuff. So she was, curious and stuff like that. Anyway, make a long story short, I got to looking at what she had been approached with, and it was from a good company and everything. But I did some digging, and we've now added a company to our portfolio of companies we work with that has just some incredible final expense options. They've got whole life, they've got term, they even have a little, I guess you call it a rider that basically once you add it, it makes sure that if and when that time comes, the price of the stuff, the casket, the urns, the different ancillary products that go into a funeral and so forth. And God knows we've gone to our share of funerals here in the last 6 months. We just went to one Saturday for a dear, dear friend of ours. But, all that stuff's expensive. And this rider basically not only locks in the price so that as these prices are escalating by all the different, funeral homes and companies that put these things together and stuff, but they also have a service where they will literally go in, if need be, and be your advocate, I guess you'd call it. So, let's say you had this on your policy and you passed, and of course, your better half or your family knew about this, and they didn't think they were getting the best prices and so forth. They could contact this service, and the service would then start dealing with the funeral home. And I mean, one of the guys that actually is with the company was telling me about his own mother-in-law situation, where a good friend of his in this little town he lives in, was trying to charge something like $6,000 for a casket, and it wasn't even a very, lavish or glamorous casket. It was very modest, and Aaron was, kind of trying to get this gentleman to come down, and then finally he just, he remembered he had this service, and he called him up, and they got all the information of, which funeral home it was and the circumstances and this and that and stuff, and so they called the agent he had been working with, and he got back in touch with Aaron and said that the price, instead of $6,000, was now $1,500. So I don't know what they did, but they did something to drastically reduce the cost of that particular casket, and I just think that's a service that's very, very valuable in these days and stuff. But I know that the other day. Let's get away from the morbid talk and stuff. If you need something like that, give me a shout. I'm at 417-755-0700. But I know we were talking about farmers. And didn't you mention you have an advanced department that handles...
We do. So people that own farms, hobby farms are a little different, right? But actual working farms. We do have a department that does farm policies, including farm vehicles, right? But on top of that, life insurance is incredibly important for farmers. And if you are one, if you know one, if you have one in your family, you would want to check and make sure that they have a substantial policy, predominantly because, and Tony and I have talked about this, because we have friends that have family farms. The last thing that anybody wants to do is lose that land in the process of not having it financially covered. And that's, we've talked about between the two of us having some products that can do that as a life insurance product will cover for that land so that it can stay in the family.
Well, and you've heard me over the dinner table talk about the case that Tom shared with us, where this very, very wealthy, large farm, the gentleman that owned it, was looking at a big life insurance policy, and at the last minute he just like, I don't need this, and this friend of ours said, he was like, well, let's do it this way. And instead of all the papers and the illustrations and all this gobbledygook, that has all these numbers on it and words and stuff like that, he said he pulled out of his briefcase these 4 little toy
Little cows, little cow figurines.
Yeah. So about the size of my phone. And there was 4 of them. And he put them on the table, in front of the gentleman. And, of course, the farmer was laughing, like, what's this? And Tom was like, well, this is your financial world. Let's say these 4 cows, they represent all of your property, everything you own and stuff. And if you don't have this policy we've been talking about, and by the way, it was a huge policy. It was several $1 million and so forth. He goes, what'll happen is because of the amount of wealth you have and the amount of property, when you pass, and he reaches over and he takes like 2 of them, he goes, the government is going to want these 2, the IRS. And so now there's only 2 of these little toy cows in front of the farmer. And he goes, and then you're going to have the state that's going to want the other one. And he's got 1 cow left. And he goes, now on the other hand, if you had a policy like this in place, and he moved the 3 back to the other one, that was by itself. So now there's the 4 again. He goes, you and your family would have all 4 of these left because the policy would take and cover the expenses and stuff. And needless to say, you can kind of probably get a feel for how this story turns out. The gentleman signed on the dotted line, and rightfully so. I mean,
And rightfully so, because when it's all said and done, his family still has everything that he worked so hard to create for them, instead of it being lost in a process. And that's what people forget. There's a cost to that process, that government process. They will come in and take a section, and no, what do they say? Death and taxes, the 2 things you can't avoid. Well, also death will not allow you to avoid taxes.
Right.
They will still come in and take their cut.
Well, and it's funny how right now a big topic in the country or in the world, I guess, is this huge divide between the uber rich and everybody, all of us, the rest of us and stuff like that. And I will tell you, the way the uber rich and the close to being uber rich manage things, a lot of times it's with using very advanced insurance strategies, so that if and when they pass, their family is not, or their estate is not decimated because of not planning. I mean, I remember the story like Joe Robbie. There used to be the Joe Robbie Stadium down in Miami at the Dolphins. The team that had Don Shula and Greasy and Zonka and Kick and all those guys and stuff. But when Mr. Robbie passed, he didn't have it structured the way it should have been, and his family, had to sell the stadium and a bunch of other assets to cover the cost and stuff. What was the actor that was on The Sopranos? Gandolfini?
Gandolfini.
Same type of thing,
Again, the funny part about life insurance is everybody wants to wait until they're going to die to have it. And if you know when that is, please let us in on that. I mean, it's great strategy if you can make that work for you. But again, James Gandolfini didn't see, nobody knew that was coming. And out of nowhere, he passes away, and...
Well, and he didn't have his affairs in order. And, I mean, we're talking millions of dollars that his estate lost because he didn't have anything in place. I mean, it's maybe a little too soon to bring it up, but this young man down in Louisiana who has been elected to be the congressman in his district, he passed away, I believe, yesterday.
41 years old.
41 years old, was elected, was waiting to get sworn in this Sunday coming up. And I don't know why they picked Sunday, but in the story I was reading this morning, and he passed away yesterday from complications due to COVID-19. And I don't know if his estate was probably set up, but my hunch is at 41, he probably didn't think that was going to be coming up as soon as it did.
Well, and he has a wife and 2 kids.
Oh, I know. It's a very sad story, and there's a lot of sad stories going on right now.
There are.
Stuff.
Well, not even right now. I mean, just in general, there's a lot of very sad stories about, well, we thought we had more time. We all think we have more time, but, you can't be on Facebook for more than a day without seeing somebody that has passed away that no one thought,
Well, let's talk about our friend last Saturday. I mean, he was 67 years old, and, the fact that and his wasn't even COVID-19 related. His was, I believe, it started with a stroke, and then he went into the hospital and had some other complications, and then passed last.
On Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah.
Early Wednesday.
And Wednesday before last, and then the services were last Saturday and stuff. So, I mean, 67's too young. 41 is way too young. And so if you love someone or you owe somebody some money, it would be prudent to add some life insurance to your portfolio, or do what we talked about at the beginning of the show, get a review of what policies you do have, and make sure that you've got everything in good order and stuff.
And start small if you need to. Start with what's affordable to you. Don't go crazy. And that actually is a good segue into what we wanted to use the last part of the time that we have, which was talking about this new year coming up.
Yes. And I gave you that deer in the headlights look because I was like, what on earth is she talking about?
Where is she going with this?
Well, actually, that was that whole policy review. I mean, do you have something you want to add to that as far as this new year coming up?
No, just, reach out to your insurance agent. If you don't have one, I would be privileged to look at that for you. There's, again, no cost to that. It just allows you to see what else is out there and to make sure that you've got the optimum pricing and coverage for what you need. So that's it.
Well, let's segue into this because we do have a few minutes left, and I do know that all the names are redacted, and all this is confidential, and so forth and so on. But I do know that we seem to be a very desirable part of the country here in Southwest Missouri, and you have a number of people that you've encountered that are moving in from like California,
Correct.
and some other high
Sure.
price places in the country. They see the value of Southwest Missouri and stuff.
Absolutely. And then they tell their friends and neighbors back in California or New York or whatever, and then they also want to come. So
It's like ants.
it's a little like ants, yes. That's fair.
Yeah, you see all the plates on the streets, from Texas and California and all these other states and stuff. But the reason I brought it up is, and I don't know if we can really do this because really where I'm wanting to go with it is, I know when you have a real estate agent that you know, and you guys network a little bit and stuff, that you've been able to make that transition for some of the new residents of Greene County very, very, very pleasant, because you're able to get involved, find them insurance, in some cases save them a bunch of money, and have a very fluid, seamless.
Yeah, that's exactly the word I like to use is fluid. I have the great blessing of working with some phenomenal people in my world. I work with lenders, I work with real estate agents, and I have the people that I tend to work with and write policies for know that those people have their best interest. It's just really cool to work with other professionals with these connected industries that we're all working together as a team to make sure that these people feel very shepherded into the area, that they feel like, we've all got their best interest, because we do. The lender is trying to get them the best loan, the best opportunities for them. The real estate agent is doing their best to make sure that they get a house that not only fits their budget, but their needs and what they're looking for and what they really want. And a lot of times those are first-time home buyers too, so that's really exciting across the board. And then my job is to make sure that everything just kind of smoothly comes together, that they know that when it's all said and done, when they go in to do their closing paperwork, that it's all done. Everything's been done for them, and they can move into their new home confident that they've moved everything and all of their assets are being protected.
And I got to tell you, a lot of these folks, it sounds like to me, in some cases, are coming in and paying cash. Some still will, work with a lender because, let's face it, if you know what you're doing and have that interest expense, it can save some, it can benefit
Right, some
you
of
in your
them are
taxes.
paying part cash or they're taking out a loan after the fact. They'll do the cash to get the closing done, right? And then they may refi it after the fact so that they can get a loan that would fit.
It's kind of like we did with Asa and
Kind of
Jonas
like
Cars.
that's how we've done cars in the past.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, it allows you some negotiation room.
Well, what just popped in my head is that, here again, we won't mention any names just for the moment and stuff, but maybe in future shows, you'd want to have one of your real estate people on as a guest, and or one of your lenders.
I will absolutely talk to them about that.
Yeah.
I try to stay in regular contact with them anyway, so I will offer them that opportunity. Not everybody is terribly excited about being on the radio or a podcast of any sort, but absolutely, I will reach out to them because that would be fun.
Well, I think that'd be fascinating because, I got to tell you, interest rates are at an all-time low. I don't know what a new mortgage is right this second. A lot depends on your credit, but I know the other day I was listening to something and I want to say I heard 2.85, which is a pretty darn good mortgage
phenomenal.
rate for
Yep.
a 30-year mortgage and stuff. And then there's all those other things that go into a mortgage, the points and the closing cost and this and that and so forth. But, that would be fascinating to me is to, kind of hear what.
I'll work on that because again, it's one of those things that the regular consumer doesn't realize how intricately woven some of these industries are and how much we can benefit one another and work together as a team on their behalf. So yeah, I'll be happy to do that. But you promised me that we could talk just a little bit about planning for the new year.
Yes, let's plan for the new year.
Well, and the reason why I'm adamant about it is because a lot of people come to this time of year and they're like, that's it. I'm going to make a bunch of resolutions and I'm going to, here's this laundry list of all the stuff I'm going to do. And as we know from watching gym memberships, for example, that lasts about a month. And then by March, you can feel free to take any piece of equipment you want because most of those people have quit and wandered off somewhere. So what I'm going to encourage you to do this year, which I have found to be extremely instrumental in helping me actually make some gradual changes, is instead of making these grand resolutions, I will do X, Y, and Z this year. I'm going to tell you, let's just tweak a little bit, okay? Let's make small, gradual changes and maybe do it quarterly, right? So between now and, let's say, March 1st, January, February, March, okay, April 1st. Between now and April 1st, I want to, let's say, for example, if weight loss is your goal, I want to lose, let's say, 10 pounds between now and April 1st, and then work back that goal so that it's a small incremental change instead of this year, I want to lose, 100 pounds, go. I mean, that's kind of daunting for most people. So that's my word of wisdom about the whole planning for this next year is, everybody's been pretty well beaten up in 2020. I don't know of anybody that's not a little exhausted and just a little freaked out about some of the things that we've all encountered this year. So take it easy on yourself. You made it. You survived. And now as we look at this new year, rather than, grabbing that anvil and telling yourself you should be strong enough to hold it, just small, incremental changes. And let's ease into this new year with some hope.
Yeah, and I like that, every 90 days. I'll never forget one time I was making a presentation to a group of advisors, and I was talking about a quarterly distribution, and one of the guys was like, so how often do they pay that? And everybody else looked at him like, I was like, every 90 days? No. Anyway. So, and another resolution might be to tithe for the first time and or more so, or to another institution. And what better place to tithe than Acts Ministry? If you're not currently working with a ministry, a church, something along those lines and stuff, you might want to take a look and see what's going on at Acts Ministry.
And we're not getting paid to do this.
No.
We just want to share this out of the truth in our hearts, which is it's a great ministry. It's an opportunity to help people and to reach people where they are. And even just a little bit goes a long way here.
Well, it really does. I mean, they've got a new location out here on West Kearney, and you know, I know that every little bit helps. So, you know, reach out. I mean, they've got a lot of, I guess I call them sub-ministries. You know, it's not just Acts ministry. It's kind of the umbrella. Underneath that are several other ministries. And, you know, that's one of those things you might kind of look at all the ones and see if there's one of those that, you know, is something you're passionate about. I know that Matt Pearson's dad was running the one for veterans. And unfortunately, you know, he passed away last month also. But I know that that ministry was strong enough to where, you know, they're going to carry on the march, so to speak, and stuff, because it was helping a number of veterans in the area. And you know, I got to tell you, there's some veterans that, you know, I mean, they need all the help they can get. I probably shouldn't go down that alley because I know I get kind of passionate, and Lorna knows, and stuff from having to work with my dad's situation for the last 4 years. But anyway, to end on a positive note, that might be something to think about is that, you know, take a look at if you can, you know, tithe and help out a ministry, whether it's here or someplace else, or if you're already doing it, you know, carry forward and all this kind of stuff. But I will tell you that, you know, one of the lessons here a while back in the stewardship class was talking about how sometimes God likes to see how you handle the smaller financial things in your world to see if you're a good steward. And then once you've kind of, I guess, shown God that you are good with the smaller things, then lo and behold, something much larger is headed your way and stuff. And you know, I think there's some merit to that and stuff. So anyway, without rambling, I got a look from Matt here a moment ago, our agent or our studio manager, producer, and stuff, that we're out of time. So rather than waiting for him to give me the complete hook, I think we'll wrap up here. And as always, we want to say thanks to Jim and Pam Whining, who I believe are in the house today, and of course Dr. Paul. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the new year next Wednesday. And thank you so much. Thanks for being a guest on my show.
Absolutely, and a special thanks to Matt, always the wonderful producer that he is, and we're very, very grateful for his work as well.
Wear your masks and your helmets and all that kind of stuff, and have a safe New Year's Eve. Talk to you soon.
Bye.